Welcome back. Now let's find out what's happening in the world of business. Teniola is standing by.
You First. First Bank.
Welcome to Business News. The country director of the World Bank in Nigeria, Mr. Shubhan Chowdhury, has asked the Buhari administration to exploit the potentials of the private sector in order to speed up Nigeria's economic development. Mr. Chowdhury, who made this known on our Business Morning program today, also highlights the contribution of private sector reforms to other developing countries within the last decade.
Main thing that I see in Nigeria, which reminds me of where India might have been, say, 20 years ago, at the beginning of the liberalization period, is really what government is doing or could be doing to really unlock the productive potential of private firms, entrepreneurs, young people. Right now, and some of these things, Nigeria in the last, as Marco mentioned, has done well in terms of starting to work on enabling business reforms, creating the space for businesses to establish themselves, to grow, to invest, to create jobs. And that's the kind of the main step that we see going forward, which would get Nigeria up to the kinds of growth rates that India and Indonesia have enjoyed in the last decade.
Members of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, are unlikely to agree to change their current deal on carbon output at the upcoming meeting. That's according to a senior official at the International Energy Agency. The head of the Paris-based IEA's Oil Industry and Market Division, Neil Atkinson, says the 15-member oil producer may put off taking a decision which involves changing the current system until things become clearer. OPEC and allies led by Russia, a grouping known as OPEC Plus, meet in Vienna on Thursday and Friday to decide what to do about their current deal, which ends in March. The stock market maintains a negative position for a second day in the new month as investors increase profit-taking on some listed high-value and mid-cap stocks. Let's get the details from Ikaite Afia.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. A day after starting off in negative territory, the stock market extended its loss by a wider margin today as the NSE's main index slipped 0.17%, further away from the 27,000 level. The fresh downturn on the market is attributed to the drop in share price of Guinness, MTNN Nigeria, as well as some mid-cap stocks from the industrial goods counter of the NSE. 19 losers led by 9.73%. Loss from Ikeja Hotel contributed to 23 billion naira drop in equities value against 13 gainers led by 9.87% increase on Akomu's oil share price. Overall volume turnover of shares traded for the day was lower by more than 10% compared to Monday's session at 189.07 million units, driven largely by the trio of Access, Zenith, and GT Bank. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Ikaite Afia.
Thanks, Ikaite. Now, major global market ends Tuesday's trading session mostly lower following comments from U.S. President Donald Trump suggesting delay in trade deal with China. Here are some of the closing figures for today. And that's Business News tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shubowale. Back to you, Melinda.
You First. First Bank.
Many thanks, Teniola. A not-for-profit organization under the aegis of NAMFI Medical Foundation is making efforts to address a major deficit in the Nigerian healthcare sector by building a modern infrastructure in the long run. In the interim, the organization has created an affordable digital technology of telemedicine to reduce the issue of brain drain and address medical tourism. But the debate was extended to whether the country needs more primary healthcare centers or tertiary institutions.
The things killing our people in Nigeria are so basic that we are not concentrating on them the way we should. In government today, the concern on paper is on this 198 million Nigerians living in the rural populace, and the basic infrastructure they need is the primary health center. Unfortunately, politicians, they concentrate on investing in primary health centers, the infrastructure, the buildings.
Some of us came back home briefly and we saw the challenge between human capital and infrastructure. Where we all think, oh, it's all the infrastructure, but when we came back home, we saw some of the realities that human capital is an issue. And we're talking of so specialized of people who have left the country. So yeah, we look into that, but the good news is that we're able to see the potentials of the diaspora group who can fill that vacuum. So having said that, then the challenge becomes now infrastructure, which is the main focus now, clear focus. And that'll be the next 5 to 10 years.
Lack of political will by the federal and state governments has been identified as the major obstacle to the success of the pension scheme in the country. And its chairman, Senate Committee on Establishment and Public Service, Senator Ibrahim Shekarau, mentioned this to journalists in Uyo, the Akwa Ibom state capital. He spoke on the sidelines of the Pension Fund Operators Association of Nigeria retreat for the National Assembly Joint Committee on Establishment, Public Service and Pensions.
Seated here are stakeholders in the pension industry, including Pension Fund Operators Association of Nigeria and members of the National Assembly Joint Committee on Establishment, Public Service and Pensions. With the theme, The Pension Industry, the Way Forward, the retreat aims at reviewing the successes and challenges of the contributory pension scheme with a view to improving how things are done.
As of 30th September 2019, the pension industry membership had grown to 8.85 million participants, while the pension fund assets under management were valued at 9.58 trillion and deployed in critical sectors of the Nigerian economy.
Today, we seek the approval of the National Pension Commission.
The retreat also features paper presentations, interactive and technical sessions. At the end of deliberations, the Chairman, Senate Committee on Establishment and Public Service, Senator Ibrahim Shekarau, and his counterpart in the House of Representatives, Kabiru Ruru, decried the non-compliance with the provisions of the Pension Act by both the state and federal governments.
Most of the problem is in the implementation and compliance with the provision of the Pension Act, which was enacted in 2004 and amended in 2014. And secondly, we also realize that there is need for closer monitoring and collaboration between all the pension operators and the government.
We were able resolve to invite the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, the Minister of Finance and the Accountant General of the Federation to come and tell us why the federal government is not remitting her part of the contribution to the pensioners, which is very critical, and we believe the intervention of the both chambers of the National Assembly is going to achieve the solution.
As far as the president of the Pension Fund Operators Association of Nigeria, Mrs. Aderonke Adedeji, is concerned, the retreat has achieved its objectives.
We've been able to discuss a number of extremely topical, critical issues, and the response so far that we've had from the members has been very, very encouraging. So we are quite pleased.
Deliberations over, participants are upbeat that the outcome of this gathering will usher in better days for the contributory pension scheme and the pension industry in Nigeria.
We believe that we are going to create value
Still ahead on the news at 10. Panel leading impeachment inquiry against U.S. President Donald Trump says it has overwhelming evidence of misconduct against him. That and other foreign stories on Around the World in 5. Plus, more problems at the Athletics Federation of Nigeria as some board members asked the body's president to step down. That's on Sports News. Join us again.